I'm Lisa Wardlaw from Munich Re, and I wanted to just give you all an overview of our next speaker. But before that, I wanted to explain to you about our passion and commitment at Munich Re and why we are a founding partner of Move the Dial. So we at Munich Re are honored to play a part in this Move the Dial movement, and in particular, speak authentically to going out of our way. The call for women in technology is clear. As a company founded in data and science, we know that we need to advance women in technology. However, that advancement is not just for women to be purely in technology. I was reflecting on an article I saw. It was a TV program at the airport. Spend a lot of time in the airports. And as part of that article, they were talking about what has made Apple so phenomenal, so great. And they were talking about Steve Jobs and his passion about the intertwining of the arts and the science. As we're in this beautiful performing theater today, and we're talking about advancing women in technology, I can't help but understand and really embody how we not only need to advance women in a kind of, I'll call it this scientific way, but it's also the infusion of art and science together, which, as you heard Jody talk about, it's that inclusive design, that inclusive diversity. Never has there been a more important calling or time in the revolution that we're facing where the role of women to partner in this creation of technology and how we're going to use it as humanity has been more important. The calling for this is critical. It focuses on the symbiotic balance that is needed to ensure that our arts and science carry us into this new genre of technology and usage thereof. At Munich Re, we are not only creating a digital presence that's authentic and focused on inclusive design, but we unequivocally champion authentic diversity. So I want to pause on that. What does authentic diversity mean? It is so much more than just saying we have a policy. Policies are very important. They help guide us. They help create our navigation north. But it's inclusive and authentic in everything we do. I often think about my life. And in every decision for all of us, it's not one big moment that we define our future. I can honestly tell you that none of my career, none of my success, none of my rearing of my children has come down to one moment or one decision. All of us make thousands of decisions every minute of every day. And it's in those thousands of decisions that we have a calling for all of us in this room, not just women, to make the inclusive decision. I would say to make the right decision. And that right decision, that speaking up, that taking that pause, that reflecting about what was said in that moment to those people, how they were stereotyped, how they were not stereotyped, actually reflecting on that and saying, I think we should be doing this. There are so many times I've been in a meeting where, I don't know, maybe somebody wasn't there. Maybe they were taking their daughter or child to the doctor, or maybe they were at a brownie meeting, or maybe they were a guy coaching soccer, whatever. And I've heard comments made about why they weren't there. And in those moments, not always, but predominantly, I've tried to take that extra moment and reflect and correct subtly that stereotypical thinking. And so I think it's in all the moments, all the thousands of decisions, and Jody reflected on it earlier, that we move the dial. So with that, I wanted to give you all just a little bit of my personal story before I introduce our next speaker. I have bold and I'll say a driven personality in my DNA. My grandmother was educated during the Depression. She went to NYU as a dental hygienist. My mom was an entrepreneur. She ran her own business for 35 years. Yet even that, when I went to college, I was actually majoring in chemistry on a bet because a boy I had dated in high school said, "Oh, you're super smart, Lisa, but you'll never graduate in chemistry because women can't do that." And I said, "Well, I'm going to do it then." And long story short, I actually finished 3.5 years of a degree in chemistry, and I switched my last year into business because I was on this plan to begin something that wasn't authentic to me, just to, in essence, prove somebody wrong, because I usually take those bets. But what I did was I ended up majoring in business administration. So I stand here before you today with a degree in liberal arts, I have a business administration degree. I have a CPA. But actually, that's not what I do in my day job. In my day job, I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Munich Re for North America Life and Health, and I help lead our team on digital transformation. So I focus a lot on radically changing what we do in our business, in our people, in our process, in our technology, and of course, in, I'll say, inclusive design. I do have 3 children. Get ready for it. 17, 8, and 4. I always tell people, same husband. He hasn't gotten rid of me yet. But I've always worked to ensure that my children know that my career is a choice. There was someone that once said when my daughter, who's 17, was 3 years old, it's unfortunate that your mommy has to work. And not only does that just shock me that someone would say that to a child, but it offends me as a woman. Working is a choice, and I want my children to know that when anyone, a man or a woman, chooses to work, chooses to have a career, that it's fulfillment. It's not a matter of unfortunate circumstances. I reflect that on you because I was just having a discussion with my 8-year-old that I want to share with you. It's a very personal moment. We were outside, he was jumping on the trampoline, and I was wearing a t-shirt from Tory Burch at the Embrace Ambition. Anybody know hashtag Embrace Ambition, Tory Burch? And my son said, Mom, why do you wear a shirt that says ambitious on the front? And I say, well, honey, I believe in embracing ambition. He goes, but Mom, you're very ambitious. He knows me well. And I said, yeah, but baby, not all women feel that ambition is a characteristic that they should showcase. And not all women feel like they should be ambitious, or do they feel like it's okay to be ambitious. And maybe some women don't even have the voice to be ambitious. They need it to be amplified for them. So I said to him, I do embrace this because I want all women, all places, to feel that they can be ambitious if that's their nature. And if it's not their nature, I want them to know that there's people who will help amplify their voice. And he said, well, I really have to think about this, Mom. He's very literal. He goes, I don't think there's anything you can't do except for be invisible, fair, or fly. And I thought, well, even Wonder Woman needed a jet for that. So what I want you to know is the difference between my 17-year-old and my 8-year-old, same school, same parenting, same upbringing, is that my son already doesn't even understand why I'm wearing a shirt called Embrace Ambition. So we are having an influence. We are moving and changing the youth of tomorrow, who will be our leaders. So I'd love to introduce our next keynote speaker. She is most definitely familiar with being ambitious. She takes 1,000 decisions a day and processes them all at once, hopefully through teaching people to code. She is the founder and CEO of GirlsWhoCode, nonprofit dedicated to closing the gender gap in technology that has already reached 90,000 girls across the US alone. Reshma Saujani was the first Indian American woman to run for Congress. She's the author of 3 books, including the forthcoming Brave, Not Perfect, as well as Women Who Don't Wait in Line, and the New York Times bestseller, GirlsWhoCode, Learn to Code and Change the World. She's the proud daughter of refugees. She lives in New York City with her husband, Nahal, their son, Sean, and their bulldog, Stanley. Please join me in welcoming Reshma Saujani. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for that introduction. It is a huge honor to be here at Move the Dial. I know how hard Jody and her team have worked to put this conference together, and it really is an honor to be here. So I spend my life teaching girls how to code, but full disclosure, I am not a coder. My father, when I was little, would sit me down and he'd ask me, what's 2 + 2? And I would say 5. So he gave up on me a long time ago. But I do this work because I believe in equality and I believe in opportunity. And so much of that passion for me comes from the fact that I'm the daughter of refugees. My parents came to the United States in 1973. They were 2 of 1,000 refugees who got the ability to come to the US after they were expelled. And the reason why they got status to come to the United States was because both of them were trained engineers. And it was the 1970s, and the US was desperately seeking engineers. So my father and my mother, in 1973, boarded a plane from Uganda to Chicago, Illinois, in the middle of winter, wearing shorts and t-shirts because they had never seen snow before. And they built a life for themselves. And no matter how tired my father was, every night he would sit me on his lap and he would read to me about Dr. King, Mahatma Gandhi, Eleanor Roosevelt. So from the time that I was a little girl, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to give back. I wanted to give back to this country that had literally saved my parents' life. I went to law school and grad school, and I graduated with $300,000 in student loan debt. I moved to New York City thinking that I would get a job at a fancy law firm and pay off those student loan debt and take off those golden handcuffs in a week or two, right? A week or two turned into 10 years, and I woke up at age 33, coming home from work every day, drinking a large bottle of wine because I hated my job. I know none of you know what I'm talking about. But it was 2008, and I was watching my mentor, Hillary Clinton, give her first concession speech. And she had this line where she said, just because I failed doesn't mean you shouldn't try too. And I literally felt like she was speaking to me. So I walked into my boss's office and I quit. And at age 33, I decided to run for United States Congress in a New York City Democratic primary against someone who'd been there for 18 years because I thought that was a great idea. I remember I had a 1% chance of winning a 1,000-page policy book, and the only thing my friends and I knew how to do was build a website. And we built one, and we raised $50,000 from Indian aunties that were just so happy an Indian girl was running for office. But it was the best 10 months of my life, and as I was sitting there, my victory party that never ended up happening, holding my father's hand, watching those election returns come in, this little ticker was not moving past 19% of the vote. I had lost. I was broke. I was humiliated. I had pissed off everybody in the Democratic establishment. And I had no contingency plan. But as I went to bed that night, the faces that I kept seeing over and over and over again were actually the ones that I had never ended up meeting on the campaign trail. When you run for office, which I hope every woman in this room does, and some of the men, when you run for office, you end up going to a lot of schools, right? And I would go into New York City public schools, and I'd go into their robotics labs and their computer science classes, and I would see dozens of boys that were clamoring to be the next Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. And, I thought to myself, where are the girls? And this question of where the girls started as a question, and it became my obsession. Because, when I was growing up, my father would often say to me, Reshma, you have three choices. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, right? Because he wanted me to get a good job, buy a home, have a family. He knew that those jobs paid well. We know here in Toronto that there are more technology jobs open that are available in Toronto than there are in Silicon Valley. You talk to any CEO, any business executives, and they'll tell you, I can't find enough technical talent. And I often think that the solution to that is women. The problem is today women don't make up a large majority of the technology workforce. Here in Canada, they make up less than 20% of computing jobs. Less than 20%, right? 15% of computing jobs in the UK, 24% in the United States. So there's no way we're going to fill all of these jobs that are open in Toronto with women unless we change those numbers. And so much of changing those numbers begins with education, right? In Canada, women make up half of the workforce and university graduates, but only 28% of STEM graduates. when you look at studies, they say to you, for girls, in order to get them to major in computer science, to be a STEM graduate, you have to expose them as young as you possibly can. But parent after parent after parent that I talk to, whether it's in the United States or here in Canada, tells me that they struggle with getting their girls interested. And so the question is why? Why is there a gender deficit amongst girls and women in computer science and technology? I think the first thing is culture. I always say you cannot be what you cannot see, right? And when girls think about technology today, they have the Barbie doll that says, I hate math, let's go shopping instead. You can walk into a local retail store and they'll have a t-shirt that says, I'm allergic to algebra. You watch Mean Girls, which I know you all do, and I do on repeat, right? And you have the scene where she gets, an A on her math test and she crosses it out for a D, just to get the affections of a boy. You can't turn on a television show, open up a magazine, and see a woman that is an engineer or a computer scientist, and it matters. I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer because I watched this movie, The Accused. Did anybody watch that movie, right? Do you remember Kelly McGillis? I thought she was awesome, and I wanted to be just like her. But we forget is that in the 1970s, less than 10% of doctors and lawyers were women. And today that number is over 50%. Why? Kelly McGillis, Ally McBeal, Grey's Anatomy, LA Law, right? We inundated culture with these images of women that were doctors and lawyers, and little girls said, me too, sign me up. The opposite thing has happened in technology. We're telling our girls that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, that you're not technical enough, and they are listening and opting out. And it is causing a major economic crisis, both here in Canada and globally. The second thing that I've been thinking a lot about is this idea that we raise our girls to be perfect and we raise our boys to be brave. From the time that we're little, we teach our girls to smile pretty, play it safe, get all A's. And we teach our boys to just crawl to the top of the monkey bars and just jump. I have a 3.5-year-old son, and when I found out I was having a boy, I cried because it was so off-brand. But, God gives you exactly what you deserve. And I often see this problem through my son's eyes. My son is learning how to swim. And in a swimming class, it's like half boys and half girls. And when the girls are learning how to swim, all the parents are like, it's okay, honey. You don't have to get your face wet. It's a swimming class, right? And with the boys, they're just like pushing them into the deep end, right? At 6 months. Because they're teaching them how to be men, how to be risk takers, how to be fearless. And when they get older, they raise their hand for things that they know nothing about. They start companies where they have no expertise. They hit on us and we tell them to piss off and they don't care. They keep going over and over again, right? They're comfortable with rejection. It's okay for them. With us, not so much. And the thing is I learned in my experience at GirlsWhoCode that actually coding teaches bravery. It teaches you how to be imperfect. And every teacher at GirlsWhoCode would tell me the same story. She'd say, when our students are first learning how to code, during the first week, a student would call her teacher over. And she'd look at her teacher and she'd say, I don't know what code to write. And her teacher would look at her screen and she'd see a blank text editor. But if the teacher pressed undo a few times, she saw that her student wrote code, but then deleted it. So instead of showing the progress that she made, she rather showed nothing at all. Perfection or bust. So in 2012, the failed politician, the non-coder, decided to do something about this issue, and I started an organization called GirlsWhoCode. I literally went on GoDaddy.com and I bought GirlsWhoCode.com for $1.99. I handpicked my first 20 girls like a good community organizer. I borrowed a friend's conference room, and I launched one program with 20 girls in a conference room in a technology company in New York City. And now, 6 years later, we've reached over 90,000 girls, and we've taught them how to computer program. And here's the thing, for all you budding entrepreneurs out there, like, I could have talked myself out of it, right? I had just lost an election that was painful. My confidence level was a little low. I had an idea about something that I wasn't an expertise in. And it's just an example for each and every single one of you who have an idea, because I know you do and you're thinking about it right now. Don't talk yourself out of it. Take one step. And I had simply just taken one step too many, and I wasn't a quitter, and I didn't know how to come back. And the thing is so powerful about where we're at right now is that we have the opportunity to solve this problem in a generation once and for all. We did a study with McKinsey that shows that by 2027, at the rate of our growth, we have the ability to close a gender gap. By 2027, that's not that far away. We also now have over 10,000 computer science graduates. And what we see is that our graduates are majoring in computer science at a rate of 15 times the national average. Our Black and Latina alumni, 16 times the national average. We can do this. And it's critical that we do this, because every day that goes by, another industry is being automated by technology. Another day that goes by, another family that needs the support of women is not being able to put food on the table or pay for the mortgage because women are not going into these high-paying jobs. We can solve this problem, and we can do it together. Now, I am a self-proclaimed feminist with a capital F. But I don't do this work because I believe in gender parity for the sake of gender parity. I believe that girls are our healers, our leaders, our future presidents, and our future CEOs. But to get to the world where we all aspire to, we have to teach our girls to code. And I think that every day that goes by that we don't fulfill this mission, there's another change maker that we're not supporting. See, when I think about my 6 years of being immersed into girls, and I think about the problems that they want to solve, there is a deep amount of empathy and compassion in girls and wanting to be change makers and wanting to solve the problems that they see in their community, in their world. I think about one of my first students, Cora, who was about 5 years old when her daddy got diagnosed with cancer. And she decided at that moment that she was going to be a doctor because she wanted to save her father's life. And it wasn't until GirlsWhoCode that she saw that there was a connection between computer science and medicine, where she built an algorithm to help detect whether a cancer is benign or malignant. 16 years old. One of my students, Trisha Prabhu, was bullied basically her whole life. And one day she was reading a story about a 12-year-old girl who was being bullied at school. And this girl climbed to the top of a building and jumped because she couldn't take it anymore. And Trisha said to herself, how can it be that at 12 you think that you have no reason to go on? So she took that pain and she went into her room and she started building an app called Rethink. So every time you're on a group text and you're about to send something that's not so nice, it asks you, are you sure you want to say that? So smart, so brave. I think about my other two students, Andy and Sophie, that built a game called Tampon Run. Yes, Tampon Run. Highly addictive. Download it right now on the Google Play Store. It's like woman runs across, you grab a tampon box, 500 points, it's awesome, right? But here's the thing. Sophie and Andy were avid game players. And they're like, every game is like a shooter game. But, there's so many girls across the world that drop out of school when they start menstruating, and every girl gets their period. So let's build a game called Tampon Run. Here's the thing, right? No boy was sitting there thinking, the menstruation taboo. Let me do something about it and build a game, right? Never going to happen. No boy was going to build Tampon Run. Sorry. And the thing is that there are so many issues every single day that we see that we need our girls to fix. One of my students was telling me that she's doing work on artificial intelligence. She's doing work on artificial. She's 16 years old. It's amazing. But she was telling me that she was reading an article about how Alexa in Google Home is being used by perpetrators of domestic violence to lock their partners out, to turn up the music really loud. Problem is I would guess that the vast majority of engineers who built Alexa and Google Home were men and never had been victims of domestic violence and wouldn't even think that this could be used that way. Time is running out, right? Time is running out. And every day that goes by, another data set is created, another innovation is created, and we're not sitting around the table. And it doesn't have to be that way. And so that's why I'm here, right? I truly believe that this problem is solvable. And so much of solving this problem is recognizing that it's a global problem. Today, I'm here to announce our international expansion across the globe of Girls Who Code clubs. And I'm also here to announce our entry into Canada, which I am really excited about. I just recruited a 15-year-old facilitator in the green room, so let me stay a little bit longer and we'll have this problem solved by 5 o'clock. We really hope that every single person in this room helps us launch a Girls Who Code club here in Canada. These programs are free. They're after school. We're building partnerships with both school districts, community centers, churches, synagogues, mosques, you name it, right? We want to have a Girls Who Code club in them. You can go to our website at www.girlswhocode.com. We are so honored to have the support of Morgan Stanley. Thank you. Can we give them a huge round of applause? To help us do our Canada expansion. So again, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to be here today, for supporting our work. And this is the movement. And I have hopefully just recruited each and every single one of you to help make sure that every single girl in Canada and across the country learns how to code. And I also hope that all of you raise your girls to be brave, not perfect, and to remember that our girls can be everything in anything. And when we set our sights on that goal, I promise you, this world is going to look a lot brighter. So, thank you.